these guys, they truly do feel like they are incel. They are in that bottom 20% or whatever it is. They don't have any hope, right?
Yeah.
They don't know how to talk to women. They are afraid that they're never going to have sex in their life, right? That no woman is going to like them. And that produces rage.
We're getting into this same sort of like, I'm ugly, posting stuff on the internet you see in the show too, just to get likes so that they feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why too, when you mentioned the pickup thing, it should not be about using that to feel good about yourself.
Right, exactly.
Because what both girls have always needed, because
Right.
they have struggled with this for a very long time, and now boys obviously need, is learning how to have confidence in themselves.
Right.
That is not
Externally, externally validated.
Right.
A child today cannot have unfiltered internet access.
No.
There is no going in your room with the door shut on a computer on any kind of electronic device. There's none of that. That cannot be. You cannot trust your child to do that. This stuff is not good for anyone at any age. So there's no age appropriateness of when you should drink poison. I think the book Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, I think she talks about the idea that, and there's a couple of books that talk about this, is this idea that we ascribe the good things that happen to us. Well, I did that.
Right.
But the bad things, that was luck. It wasn't my fault. Someone else did
Blame
it.
someone else.
So we take responsibility for the good things that may be luck. We might have gotten lucky. It was it was my skill, right? Because when she's talking about poker, playing poker, so, when you win, it's your skill. But when you lose, it's bad luck, right? And so that's the thing about it. But the whole thing is that, like I was saying about even the pickup or teaching guys to talk to women, and those guys aren't going to become violent because they have hope, because they know that they could succeed, that they could become better, that they could learn some game, whatever it is, that it's not just the genetics they were born with that limit them. And it's such a destructive thing when you allow someone to believe that they have no hope, they have no way of improving their situation. And I think that one of the things that's kind of missing from that show, because I fear that, and we talked about this, is that I fear that one of the things that may happen is that there's even more hatred towards these young boys or men or masculinity in general, thinking that that's bad because the father is angry, and it's like he learned that from, and the thing is that we do need to have empathy for men in general that are somewhat outcasts or feel, because today in society, there's not really a place for masculinity. Like women are more applauded for their masculinity than men are. When men display masculinity, it's generally frowned upon, or they need to get on some medication, right? There's a lot of this in the cultural in the cultural zeitgeist. Oh, I can never say that word, but also it's just, these guys, they truly do feel like they are incels. They feel like they are in that bottom 20% or whatever it is, that they're not going to, they don't have any hope, right?
Yeah.
They don't know how to talk to women. They are afraid that they're never going to have sex in their life, right? That no woman is going to like them. And that produces rage.
We get into the empathy and the masculinity. I want to tap into a few things that you had said before you go too far.
Go ahead.
When I had brought up about teaching kids resilience and things like that, I think that helps boys and girls, obviously, too, learn from an early age how to have a growth mindset. And that's why I brought that up. Because if they're learning that they have the power to make a change, and if they change things or, think about things differently, that they can get a different outcome, and they see that, that helps promote a growth mindset. So that would also help that by the time they reach 13 years old, if they see something on the internet, they can think more about it rather than just believing what this person is saying. So that's why I brought up that, teaching resilience in children and like allowing them to fail, but being a support for them when they do, will help them in all aspects. And it'll help them from a very young age learn the growth mindset and hopefully perpetuate that forward. And then
let me go off of what you said though.
Okay.
So in the show, right, one of the things was they were trying to the father and mother were trying to figure out at the end of the show, like, what happened? Like, how did we screw up? And they did. And the father was like, yeah, he was basically like, I tried to make him more tough and more masculine. I enrolled him in football. And then he was like not good at football, and I was kind of ashamed. And so like I put him into boxing, and then that didn't last for very long. He didn't want to do boxing. Then he started drawing, and then I got him a computer. And it was like the thing I think that was missed, that maybe even it was just not even in the show. Like they weren't even really highlighting what they actually revealed was that the problem was that the father put him in football and then moved him to something. He didn't make him stick with that thing.
Yeah.
Because
at least for like a full term, right? Because it's not like kids can't have the option to do a different sport.
Right.
But like you said, and like we do ourselves, is that if you make a commitment that's a year-long commitment, you have to at least do the year.
Right. And he, like, if you stuck with it, if you suck at something and then you just get to move on to the next thing, you don't get the growth mindset, because you're like, okay, some things I suck at, some things I'm good at. That's not how it actually works. Like the kids that are good at football were the ones who practiced, who played, who some maybe they had some natural athletic ability, but at some point that what you had naturally doesn't matter. It's how much work you put in practice that you put in. And so where the father really screwed up, and where parents screw up today in not teaching children resilience, is they don't make them stick with something.
Right.
Because they need to stick with something, especially if they suck at it. Even if they don't like it, that's fine. They need to stick with it long enough to make some progress and learn that they can actually improve at a thing. Because once a child, or once a human being learns that they can actually improve at a thing, then they get rid of that fixed mindset.
Yeah, and that hopelessness, because they can see the growth to themselves. And I wanted to talk to what you said about, the genetics thing.
Yeah.
About the content creators that are like, it's genetic and you just don't have the genetics.
Right.
Which is causing these boys, and you see it in the show too, to now be like, I'm ugly. Just tell me I'm not ugly.
Right.
Which is exactly how women feel in a different way. And when we were watching it, I was like, it's very interesting that boys are now struggling with this like physical appearance problem that women have always struggled with. And it is in a different way, because they feel like, oh, it's just genetics, which 13-year-old boys should not be afraid of their genetics, because they're not going to look like a 13-year-old boy for the rest of their life.
Right.
But if you instill in a 13-year-old boy at 13 that he's just not going to be genetically gifted, that even if he does become genetically gifted, he's still probably super insecure, because you've made him super insecure at 13 years old.
Right.
And young girls become super insecure at a very young age, because they see either social media as well too, or they see grown adult women with a lot of plastic surgery, and they're like, I don't look like her. And, and they're 13 or they're whatever.
Yeah.
Even when they're older, they're like, I don't look like that. So then they go towards plastic surgery or things like that to like make themselves look how they think is appealing.
Right.
And so now these boys are getting into this same sort of like, I'm ugly, posting stuff on the internet, you see in the show too, just to get likes so that they feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why too, when you mentioned the pickup thing, like it should not be about using that to feel good about yourself.
Right, exactly.
Because what both girls have always needed, because they have struggled with this for a very long time, and now boys obviously need, is learning how to have confidence in themselves that is not
externally. Externally validated.
Right, exactly. And now, since these red pill guys are promoting, well, it's genetics and you need to look like this, instead of guys going to the gym, or 13-year-old boys being like, well, I'm not grown up yet, I haven't even really hit puberty probably, then realizing that they're not going to always look this way, there's things that they can do, and that women don't even primarily look for looks the way that men do.
Exactly. It's not this.
If they had the ability to think in this way, or like I said, had the resilience where maybe they're like, no, like I don't look the same as I looked when I was 10.
Right.
I'm not going to look 13 forever.
Right.
They don't, we need to be teaching them how to have confidence in themselves in other things
Right.
that aren't just physical outward appearance, which I feel like women are trying to teach young girls more about that because we've lived through this.
Yeah.
But now after watching that, it was crazy to see that now the boys, which I'm not saying boys never dealt with this, but the way that he described it is this sort of like more extreme version that women and girls have dealt with forever. And we understand, and that's the thing too, going into like the empathy and the masculinity is like, we can understand where those men are coming from.
Right. Yeah.
Like feeling like you're ugly. And the funny thing is,
it feels like it's out of your control, right? It's
right.
like, I
was born this way.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
I can't do anything about it. But the also weird thing about it is that those same men who feel bad about themselves, and women do this as well too, who are insecure, will pick on someone else and call them ugly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, having that confidence in yourself that doesn't stem from how you look is also what we need to be cultivating, especially in the children. Because if you have confidence as a child, and things are going to happen, they're going to have moments. We were all kids at one time, and it's hard to deal with our peers and bullying and even going through puberty and the changes that happen with that. But I think that it's just a lot of the parenting stuff does play somewhat of a role into it because we should be teaching our children some of these things in a better way than we've been doing. And that will help them when they face things like stuff on the internet. Because at this point, yes, as a parent, I also think you should be limiting your kids' internet access and like making things age appropriate that they're exposed to. But also, we're just getting more and more technical. And that's why these core things like resilience and confidence are so much more important to teach, because we can't control where technology is going. And once our kids are 18, we can't control what they're doing. And so if we give them the things that they need inside to fight through the outside external circumstances, like watching red pill content, or even being a woman and having a man leave you a hateful comment, like teaching our children how to deal with those things and our teenagers will help them more than, just trying to totally control things that we can't even necessarily control. Would I like the like damaging red pill stuff to be off the internet so these boys don't even get exposed to it? Yeah. But I can't control that.
Well, and the thing is that, okay, so I agree with what you're saying. But I also say that we do need to, like as a parent, a child today cannot have unfiltered internet access.
No,
not at all.
Not
you can't
unfiltered.
even, it has to be, you have to be monitoring. There has to be, there is no going in your room with the door shut on a computer, on any kind of electronic device. There's none of that. That cannot be. You cannot trust your child to do that. Because the thing about it too is that, when they're 18, they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do. But here's the thing is, first of all, is that this stuff is not good for anyone at any age. So there's no age appropriateness of when you should drink poison, right? It's like,
you're right.
Never, right? It's the same thing with alcohol. It's like, look, if you're drinking alcohol, it's fine, but you shouldn't be, because you're just poisoning yourself. There's no age at which this becomes an appropriate behavior, right? Or to like escapism, to drown your sorrows in alcohol, or, and there's no age. Let's just not, mince words with it. And then the other thing about it is that there is, however, this concept of, if people are like, well, they're going to get exposed to this stuff anyway, we need to prepare them for it, which I do agree, we need to prepare them for it. But the best way I've heard it said, this is not my own original thing, but is that if you have an oak tree, right, it starts out as a sapling, right? And as that sapling, you can't say, oh, well, I need to not shelter it because it needs to be able to withstand the winds and the storms. No, while it's growing up, you shelter it as much as possible so that it can have a chance to build a strong, sturdy root system and trunk. And so then when the winds come, then you take the shelter off and it's strong enough to withstand it.
Right.
So a lot of, I think parents get it confused and like, well, I can't shield them from all this stuff anyway. No, you shield them as long as you can and instill in them all the values that you can to teach them right from wrong, morality, to build their character, to build their resilience, like you said, to operate from a higher level, to teach them to respond in love to things instead of bullying and hatred.
Right.
And then, when they're 18, they're going to get exposed to all this stuff, but now they'll be in a much stronger position to handle it.
Right.
Whereas you take an average 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid, no matter what you're teaching them and how much you're trying to build their character, can they resist the porn on the internet?
Right.
Can they resist this content that is telling them all of these things that's brainwashed? It doesn't matter what you're doing as a parent. That is so much of a stronger pull.
Right.
They're not ready for that. But
their brains aren't fully developed.
Right. But if they've been in an environment that's sheltered, it's good to be in a sheltered environment for a long period of time. In order to develop that strength, then they get exposed to it. They're going to survive it. It's the same thing. It's the whole argument. When originally our daughter was homeschooled, and people were like, oh, you're sheltering her. I'm like, yeah, damn right I'm sheltering her. I'm going to shelter her. She needs to be sheltered because when she becomes an adult, then she can, she'll be strong enough to handle that stuff.
Right.
But I'll shelter a child as long as possible.
Yeah, I think people confuse sheltering with not teaching their children how to deal with the things that they're sheltering them from.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Is because when someone hears, someone's homeschooled or don't allow your kids to have full access to the internet, they think like exactly you just said, well, they're going to deal with it someday. They're not going to be prepared to deal with it. But that's where it's wrong. I'm not saying that some parents don't shelter and then they don't teach their kids how to deal with this. That does happen.
Yeah.
But what you should be doing is, like you said, is sheltering or limiting while also teaching how to deal with these things.
Yeah.
Because yes, our daughter doesn't have full access to the internet, but we have very open and honest conversations with her.
Yep.
And to the point where she can talk to us about anything that she wants to talk to us about, and we don't get angry.
Right.
We've told her too that when she gets to a point and she goes out and maybe she does drink, even though we don't drink, that if she ever needs help, we will pick her up, no hesitations asked.
Right.
She can always call us.
Right.
If she's not where she said she was supposed to be, she can still call us. That doesn't mean she won't have the consequences for doing, certain things like that.
But she won't have the judgment. She'll have the consequences, but not the judgment. And that's, I think, that's what's key.
And it causes this open dialogue as well too, that where if she is an adult and she's struggling with something, that she can also come and talk to us about it. And she has all these books that we've read and conversations we've had with her about a whole bunch of different stuff where she's not unprepared.
Right.
Like she's not unprepared emotionally. Yeah. Like we've had conversations about some of the topics that we've talked about, like her getting older and, certain things like that, like things that are more prone to happen. That we've had conversations about those things. That doesn't mean she's allowed to go do those things. It doesn't mean that she's going to get free reign to like come and go as she pleases. But it allows us to have that connection with her where if something were to happen, that she could call us and she knows that we could help her, or she can lean on her own knowledge of what we've had in the discussions about those things. And I understand discussions aren't the same as being in that situation. But also what people don't realize is that when you protect your child while also educating them on these things, they are less likely to even get in those bad situations. Yeah, exactly. It's not saying it never would happen.
No,
I'm not,
but,
talking unrealistically
but
here.
In that show, what happened? And first of all, she has no access to social media aside from Pinterest, which maybe was a mistake. But these kids were on Instagram,
right?
And they were posting on Instagram. And then what actually happened was that they didn't even realize this, but the girl had bullied the boy
by calling him an incel and
by secretly by
with
doing,
the emojis,
like, with the emojis, and it took the other boy that was the main detective's son to decipher that, to tell them, hey, you don't even know what's going on. This girl was bullying him, you know, and so, but there's a couple of things in there, right? It's like, one, the social media, but two is also, look, that's part of the education too. As a woman, do not provoke guys to rage. Like, don't do it. Like, just respond in love. Like, ignore. That's fine. But you don't know, like, because that's one thing that, I mean, we need to have this conversation with our daughter.
I've had the conversation with
is
her.
Like, well, we've talked about it before, but to really, I want her to hear about this show a little bit, not to watch it. I don't think she needs to watch it, but yeah, I don't think she needs to watch it, but to hear that, like, look, this is serious. Like, you don't know who is listening to crazy content online and will stab you. Like, don't make fun of boys. Don't treat them badly. Don't, you know, whatever. Even if they deserve it, don't do it. Just be kind to people. And that just goes for all of us in general. Like, your road rage situation. You don't know who is driving behind you that has had a really bad day. Their wife just left them. They got a gun in the car. They don't care. Like.